Okay, thanks for tuning in, everyone. So this was the last question that rose at the top of our conversation in the poll, and it was, how does PEO DHMS plan on exercising the baseline, incentive-based, and game changer profits, and asked how the metrics would be used to monitor and evaluate performance. So this one's a little more complicated. So I wanted to have some visual aids, but I think it's a really important question. So I'm glad that someone asked, and hopefully I can run you through a few examples. So to start off, I wanted to show this slide in the evaluation because this to me is really the core. This is what this is going to be all about. And at the end of the day, if we're going to be successful in this level of transformation and deliver the level of quality we expect, we're going to need every person working on this contract to be a champion of these models, right? And so what we're trying to achieve with the metric-driven approach is we want to reward you for aligning yourself to the behaviors and for doing what you have to do to make sure that your employees exhibit the behaviors that we need, right? And so, I know it's a challenge if you have to go out and do things like change people's performance plans, change your executive compensation models, all these different things. And we want to make that worthwhile because we want you to do it. And so what the metrics are meant to do is really to focus on our behavior, our success. So we don't want to measure your performance. What we really want to measure is our success. And so if we're being successful, we want to reward you. And so we have come up with this profit model, which is one of the ways that we're going to use the metrics. But essentially, if we settle into status quo, if we settle into our comfort zone, I don't want you to achieve probably even double-digit profit levels, right? Like that isn't contributing to our success, and that's easy, and that's relatively risk-free. So we don't view those rewards being in line with what we're trying to achieve. And so the flip side of that is if we are really transformative, if we are successful at delivering great technologies, I want this to be the most profitable contract you've ever worked on at the government. And so those are the two sort of lines, and that's how the metrics and the incentives will tie together. And so, how does this kind of work in practice? Well, I sketched this out really quickly, so hopefully everybody can see it. So what we're really looking, so the baseline profit, I mean, that's going to function. You guys are familiar with that. You propose a price, you propose a profit, and then your actual performance will determine what that profit level is. And we intend to keep this pretty low, like I said, and we will probably negotiate it firmly during the competitive IDIQ process, and we will probably incorporate it by reference to be a point of departure. So every task order you propose going through the process will probably be at that 3-4%, sort of baseline profit level that we negotiate. But then we have this incentive model, and this is where we really want to kind of do it. And I just did it with generic metrics. And so if you're looking throughout the process, we've put some ideas of what we think these metrics could be based on the behaviors that we want to drive and encourage. But this is one of the most important areas. So you've seen throughout this process, right? We're going to use it to determine whether you continue to get work. With the fair opportunity exemptions, we're going to use it for the incentive profit. We're going to use it for your traditional CPARs. We probably will use it in source selection to some extent. So these metrics are critical. So this is where we really need people to bring in the brains, right? And so we need those people with product experience who have succeeded to give us feedback on this. So this is not a how do you win work kind of question. And so we're getting a lot of questions so far about the business development piece, and this is where we kind of want to pierce beyond that to get to some of your really good product folks who have really good ideas, who have done this and know what matters. We put together some ideas, but this is one area where we want a ton of feedback. So anyway, I put some generic metrics in here. And so there's a lot of ways we can do this. So I said, threshold, objective, actual. So we're going to let you essentially propose all of these, right? And so there's a lot of different ways we could calculate it. So in this metric 1, you can see we're in between the threshold and objective. So maybe we give you $1. On metric 2, you were below the threshold. So maybe you get $0 for that. And so metric 3, maybe you get your objective. So you've got a total of $4. So when you take your baseline profit of $2 and your incentive profit of $4, now you have $6. And so, that could, in this case, that's 60% of your proposed price, right? I don't know that that's totally crazy. It just depends on how successful you are in meeting our objectives, right? And this is going to be a point of negotiation. And so there's a lot of different ways we could do it. I could say maybe you get $0 because you didn't even hit the threshold on one of your metrics. Maybe it's all or nothing. Maybe these are weighted based on the importance of the metric. Maybe there's a bigger spread between the threshold and incentive. Maybe we don't give you anything for threshold. Maybe it's all or nothing on hitting objectives. So there's a lot of ways to do this. So when are we going to figure this out? Well, we're going to ask you to propose this model and incorporate it by reference during the source selection, but we will take task order 1, take the design to outcome task orders, take the accelerator task orders, and one of the outcomes of those task orders is going to be to firmly agree and negotiate. So in the case of task order 1, you're going to tell us what metric 1 is, metric 2, metric 3, the threshold, the objective, and propose amounts for those. And then we're going to negotiate that. And then when we issue the core task order, we're going to measure this based on everything that we agreed to. And so how does that play out? So I have tried to show you. So you'll see, you'll get, your core CLIN, you basically bill it monthly, do the work. Then you'll see at the IDIQ level, we'll have an incentive profit payment. So we'll lay this out in a special clause. So it'll be, the terms and conditions will be very spelled out. And you'll have a big pool of IDIQ at the IDIQ level, but maybe 1,000 times $1 incentives, right? And then, so once we measure you about whether we've been successful based on your support or not, we decide how much incentive profit you earn, you'll get a mod on your task order that orders 10 of that 1,000, and you'll get funding and see all of that. So that's how the CLIN structure will sort of play out. And then I would imagine that the game changer CLINs are going to be very similar. And so the game changer one, again, the big IDIQ profit pool, these will be a little more subjective. The mechanisms of that we haven't totally figured out. If we have to have a fixed price award fee type CLIN for that, we can do that. If we have to put together some kind of agile award plan, we'll figure all that stuff out. But the concept, I think, is more important for the moment. So if you can kind of see, like, okay, as you go through the IDIQ, you might have, a little event and we'll give you $1 and all of that stuff. If you, let's say, like, really change the world, like if you completely resolve the fundamental tension between cybersecurity and user experience, so that those things are now directly correlated and we don't have to worry about any of that stuff anymore. Maybe you get a bigger one. Probably mostly you'll probably tend to get little ones, but this is really subjective. When we see something on the ground that really resolves a tough problem that we've been stuck with for a long time, that's where the game changer will come in. So hopefully that illustrates these a little bit better. I think probably the key takeaway, we want you to have input on these. So as we go through these design task orders, before we get to the core task order, you're going to have input. So you can look at it. Like, the first year, are we going to completely change the world? Probably not. It's probably going to be a lot of figuring stuff out. So the first core task order probably looks a lot different than the 5th core task order, right? And so, we have all of that in mind. But the point is, we want you to have ownership in it. So we've put some ideas out there, but please give us feedback. This is, dovetailing into one of the other questions we got. What UI UX metrics should PEO utilize? We don't know. I ask that question in every meeting, and nobody can ever give me an answer. And so when people ask, why is product experience important for this contract? That's why, because we don't have that expertise. This contract needs to bring it. And so this is how we're using it. And so it really will be a behavioral driven approach. And so, I'm a depth and defense kind of guy. I kind of like to take different approaches. So we'll use the metrics throughout the contract. The big one will be profit. We know money talks. So we have buy-in to sort of do this. And we really believe if we do well transforming, we will actually spend less money than we do now, because there are a lot of opportunities to be a lot more efficient. Look forward to continuing this discussion with you when we get to the industry touch point next week. Thanks, everybody.